today we are welcoming, finally, Melanie Jane to come today to talk to us about motels in America. You probably remember she was scheduled to do this last October and wasn't able to because she became ill. So we are super excited to have her back. Thank you so much. Melanie Jane is a Milwaukee native. She moved to Sturgeon Bay in 2008, having received an invitation to participate in the collaborative songwriting construction zone of Steel Ridge Songfest. 3 years later, in 2011, she offered to help run the Holiday Music Motel while they searched for a new management team, but it quickly became apparent that with her musical and management talents, she was an ideal match, not only for running the 24/7 365 business, but also as co-producer, collaborator, and organizer for the songwriting events that until 2020 were hosted at the Holiday 3 times a year. The Steel Ridge Songfest, Dark Songs, and Love on Holiday. Raise your hand if you've been to one of those amazing events. Very good. Prior to moving to Sturgeon Bay, Melanie Jane performed and recorded both as a solo act and as a supporting side guy. I think you don't give yourself enough credit.
I was a side guy.
Okay. You're pretty important. For a myriad of artists while teaching cello privately in the Milwaukee area, Melanie Jane currently serves on the board of directors for the Holiday Music Motel, Steelbridge Creative Foundation, and Destination Sturgeon Bay, in addition to her mayoral appointment to the City of Sturgeon Bay's local arts board. So this afternoon, Melanie Jane will discuss the motel phenomena of the 40s and 50s and the history of the Holiday Music Motel within that movement. She'll talk about architectural design, the 2008 retrovation, environmentally friendly focus, community involvement and activism, and its development into the Holiday Music Motel, a fully operational lodging investment establishment that also provides a slew of services to the music committee, from songwriter retreats to full recording sessions, open mics, house concerts, and, if that wasn't enough, an internet radio station that exclusively broadcasts the music written and recorded at the motel. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Melanie Jane.
Thank you. All right.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me here today. Where to begin? Sorry about canceling back in October, but it's a good thing that I did. I ended up having COVID, so to be around all of you fine people with that would not have been the greatest idea. Anyway, so might as well just jump in here. So the rise and fall of motels in America. So basically, we're going to kind of look at the whole thing, and I'm sorry that it's not perfectly linear or chronological, so things are going to kind of bounce around a little bit because different needs are apparent at different times in different areas of the country, depending on a lot of different factors. So we'll kind of try to tie it all in without jumping around too much. But the primary things leading to the motel phenomenon are industrial accomplishments, primarily the advent and the popularity and increase of automobiles and the highways in which they travel. The economy, of course, is going to play a very prominent role in influencing, number 3, our social and cultural attitudes towards travel. So starting off, just to give you a quick overview of things to look for as we're looking at these different slides. I mean, we're really going back. I know that the intro said 40s and 50s, but it's really impossible to just focus on that. You have to take a couple steps back. So you really start off with the single tourist homes, which are always going to be a thing, to auto camps, cabin camps, and just kind of quick looking at how they're set up, individual little cottages and clusters around a bigger building, and then you see them kind of getting in line, carports, single roof line, to single foundation, single roof line, multiple stories, and on and on. So that's one of the things to kind of pay attention to as we're going through these slides and talking about the history. And another thing to look at is how they are organized. And it's kind of chronologically spaced here from left to right. The earlier ones are kind of spaced out with individual things. They'll become integrated, and as they start to build taller, they've become called center core, and then of course we have what our modern day high rises. But we have to really go back to the beginning, before automobiles, and why are people traveling? What is the motivation for travel? If you're, say, from Sturgeon Bay settled in the 1850s, let's say it's 1880, and why are you going to travel, and how are you going to travel? You're relying on animals to get you there, horse and buggy, that kind of thing. Pretty much for the average person, your entire life is going to be a 30 to 50 mile radius. And especially once they built the canal, it's really going to take a lot longer to get places. So, for example, like if you want to take a trip to Algoma horseback, it's going to take you about 4 hours to get there. Well, that's not really a leisurely trip. It's going to be hard. You're going to be exhausted. So again, it kind of points to what's available for travel and why you're traveling. So at that time, travel is going to be more for pragmatic reasons, to get supplies, that kind of thing. So yeah, Algoma is about 4 miles on horseback. Egg Harbor, about the same. Fish Creek would be about 6 hours. So we're talking, you need an overnight stay. Green Bay, 40 to 50 miles, that's 11 to 12 hour trip. Why are you going to do that? Most people just aren't. So during this time, it's pretty much horse or sail or rail. Now in Wisconsin, we did eventually get the train coming through there, but Industrial Revolution, the Transcontinental Railway finally in the 1860s connects the country, but that's still taking 3.5, 4 days to travel from coast to coast. And even once you get there, you're going to need horse and buggy to get you to your next destination. So these are your options, and along the way you do see hotels, but they're more of, especially around train stations and stuff, they're going to be more like rooming houses, not necessarily the best. The more affluent would then, take horse and buggy into town and stay at nicer hotels. So again, looking at this, why are you going to travel? There really isn't the idea of leisure travel at that time. Nobody's going to do that. Mostly people they're out looking for work. They're looking for supplies. There's reasons why they're traveling, and it's really not just for fun. So this might be an example of something close to a train station. Moving on here. So here we go as well. And sometimes you'll see bicycles parked in there. So it's horse or sail or rail. Bicycles become very popular, but they're not built for long distance. They're not road bikes, and the roadways are not paved. So everything is going to take a long time. Everything is going to be a hard travel. But then we start, people are, even in the early 1800s, are experimenting with different kinds of engines, primarily steam engines. And Wisconsin in the late 1800s, 1880s, actually plays a very important role in the development of the automobile. And we actually see Carhart, you might be familiar with that name from Racine, Wisconsin. He develops what this is called the Spark, and it's a steam engine, one-cylinder locomobile, kind of a pairing of locomotive and automobile. So the word gets around about him developing this machine. And so the state of Wisconsin actually creates a kind of a competition for the first person that can find a practical substitute for the use of horses and other animals. And that's 1875, actually. And the state of Wisconsin offered a $10,000 prize for the first one to come up with such a solution. Some of the criteria was that they needed to maintain 5 miles per hour for a minimum of 200 miles. So, and again, these are not paved roads. These are wagon roads. They're rutted, they're dirty, very difficult travel. So this led to the very first city-to-city auto race, and that goes from Green Bay to Madison. And there were 7 entries with similar kinds of automobiles. This is the one that Carhart had. And there were 7 entries, but only 2 of them even left the starting line. So
2 left the starting line, and the one that was made in Green Bay was faster, but it broke down, and the one that was made in Oshkosh is the only one that finished the race, and it took 33 hours and 27 minutes to go 201 miles at 6 miles per hour on a 1-cylinder engine. That's pretty much the same as a lawnmower. So yeah, he must have been pretty exhausted after that. The state only, from what I was reading, I think it was supposed to be ultimately round trip, and the state really, they kind of kept changing the rules on it. So I think they really didn't think anybody was going to finish it. So it went from a $10,000 prize to, oh, maybe, you guys said, no, we meant that it's supposed to be in use for X amount of time. So they actually ended up suing over it. And the settlement was that they got half the prize, and then they had to split the prize money with some of the other entries. So that's what we're experimenting with here. So, and the spark was tooling around Racine, and people downtown Racine really were not happy about it. Apparently it was extremely loud. It scared the horses. So then they had to kind of squash that down. And his sons actually ended up dismantling this and using it for some kind of printing press or something. So it was repurposed eventually. But still, people are experimenting with improving their modes of transportation. So still, it's not, we just don't know any leisure travel. What is that? It's just people are surviving. They're not going out on vacation because everything's going to be hard. So you see things like this, that's not going to be for any kind of long distance travel, for sure. It's probably for tooling around town. Something like this is, again, more for tooling around town and clearly geared for the more affluent. And as I said just a moment ago, that they're loud and they're scaring the horses. This was a big problem. And now we've gotten to a more developed automobile here, clearly. So, but just to take, the thing I like about this image is that it's showing you how they're dressed while they're driving. I mean, they're wearing goggles. There's no windshield. There's no cover. So whenever they go from point A to point B, they're going to be covered in dust and dirt by the time they get there. If you were taking this from city to city and wanted to stay in a hotel, it's not much of an option for you because at that time, too, there's a lot of social etiquette. Hotels have a very public lobby area. It's seen and be seen. And you can't be really coming in there covered in dust and dirt and stinking of motor oil and that kind of thing. But one of the issues at the time was now we have these automobiles, these loud automobiles, sharing the road with horse and buggy. And this next image is kind of entertaining. So this was this was developed, the horsey horseless carriage. And the idea was that the horse would see this coming and be fooled into thinking it was another horse, and it wouldn't realize that it wasn't a horse until it already got past him, and then it'd be too late. It's unclear if this was ever developed. From what I was reading, there's no evidence that it was developed, but it does appear, I believe, in Forbes magazine as one of the top worst 50 cars ever designed. So a lot of interesting ideas going on around there, but of course, a lot of different people are developing their own automobiles, but as we all know, the most influential is going to be Henry Ford, right? So here's just kind of a quick overview of the earliest inceptions of his automobiles going up to the 50s, or not 30s, sorry. Just looking at, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see some of these earlier ones. There's no protection to a little bit of protection, maybe a movable fabric top. There's nothing really protecting you from the elements here. No windshield. You start to see windshields appear eventually, let alone a windshield wiper. And windshield wiper, when it wasn't invented, it was invented by Mary Anderson. And later developed, but it wasn't even standard equipment on some of these cars until well into the 20s and 30s, maybe even 40s. And it wasn't mandated until 1966 that all cars have to have windshield wipers. In any case, if you just imagine for a minute that you have a family and you want to take a vacation, are you really going to load up in something that doesn't even have a cover on it? It's not like there are gas stations all around and places to take care of you. So what you'd be looking at here is something like this, where you are literally taking everything that you need with you, from food to clothing to a little stove to cook on, a tent for shelter when you need to pull off the road, tools to fix your own car. You're going to need to bring extra gas, extra motor oil, extra tires. So they're really packing it in, and they're tying everything down to the running boards. Anything that they can fit in there, they're putting in there. So it's not easy to travel. Many people are also traveling, looking for work and that kind of thing. So here's one very inventive fellow has figured out how to put a little portable kitchen right in his car. But this is more of what you would see people just pulling off to the side of the road, setting up camp, and that's it. But imagine a big rainstorm come through, anything like that. It's really going to be a miserable experience for everybody. Here's another one. They would just drive until they can't drive anymore, pull over the side of the road. But at least it's affording people the opportunity to travel farther. I mean, even if you were traveling by horseback, let's say that you do take your team of horses to Green Bay, they're going to need a day to rest. They're an animal. You can't just keep pushing them. Whereas a car, you can keep it going as long as it's got gas and motor oil and everything's working, you can keep going. So more and more, this becomes very popular with people as, the American spirit, manifest destiny. People are getting more interested in exploring the country on their own time, on their own terms. So they are packing up the car and heading out, particularly out west. Not to say that it's not happening in the east, but the needs in the east are a little bit different because the population is more condensed at that time. It's more developed already. It's easier to find tourist houses and places to pull off the road. But it's really, west of the Mississippi, fewer and fewer places. Everything is much further spread apart. This it's called squatter camping, squatter travel. And this starts to become a problem for a lot of farmers and landowners, and to just have people showing up and throwing their tents and everything. They were nicknamed tin can tourists, tin Lizzies, and that was partly from the nickname that was given to the Model T Ford. 1908 is when that really came out, and it was nicknamed the Tin Lizzie as part of the horseless age on our roadways. Tin because of the lightweight metal material it's made out of, but Lizzie was like a nickname for that people called like their workhorses and things like that. So they were known as Tin Lizzies. But these tin can tourists were also known as that because they're traveling with all their own food and everything, and it's in tin cans, and they're leaving them behind everywhere they go. So there's garbage, and it's really becoming a problem. So a lot of municipalities start to set up areas thinking that if we give them a place to set up, that'll take the pressure off and of them just setting up camp in people's random fields and that kind of thing. So here's a good image of that where you see, they're still bringing their own tent and food and everything with them, but there is an actual fixed structure there that probably has some kind of grill or something that people can come and use. They have places where you can throw out your garbage and things like that. And many of them were set up, and they were, municipalities just sponsored them a lot of the time just to try to curb this tin can tourism and all of the problems that it left behind. Here's a one that shows you that they've got several structures set up. They probably have some outhouses and things like that. And a particular interest in this one is that it has a listing of the next free camps down the road, so people could really gauge how far do they need to go before their next stop, where they can actually take a breath and regroup and rest up, if you will, if that's even possible at that time. The increase in popularity, which it's said that they became a victim of their own popularity over time because it just became oversaturated. And in 1908, they're putting out the Model T Ford, and at first, they're putting out one Model T every 12 hours. But then Henry Ford, he's not just an automobile designer, he also comes up with the moving production line. So now they've gone from 12 hours put out one car to 93 minutes. They're cranking out a new Model T, which then takes the price from like $840 to $240. So it becomes far more within reach of the average person. So people are buying them up left and right, and now they want to hit the road. They want to get out there. They want to see the world. But where are they going to stay? Again, they can't stay at these hotels, partly for the reasons I've already told you, social etiquette, they're dirty and all that kind of stuff, but also because they're traveling with all of their supplies. And to this point, the cities are set up for horse and buggy travel. There's nowhere to park your car downtown. And there's also really no way to lock up all your belongings, so you're just completely susceptible. So there's just nothing appealing to people, plus they're expensive. There's just really nothing very appealing to the average person about staying at a hotel. So again, they're setting up camps, but again, becoming a victim of their own popularity, and it's getting out of hand. But our good capitalist American mentality, we're going to find a way to monetize this thing, right? So a lot of people start, oftentimes it was farmers or somebody that did own a gas station or maybe a little grocery store. Well, if somebody's stopping for gas, they probably also need a place to stay. So they start building these little cabins. Here's the You Need a Rest camp on Highway 20. They're very cheaply built, and you actually see a huge jump in the production of these during the Depression, which you would think, that during the Depression, people aren't going to be building, but it was quite the opposite. People were building like crazy at that time, looking for any way to make a dollar. I mean, so they built these very cheaply. You want a mattress? You got to pay extra. A bucket of water? Extra. Everything was a little bit, was extra. And they're not insulated. It looks like these are even built up on blocks. So they're really not going to be comfortable, not really for the faint of heart to travel. But it does start to affect how the travel culture, where they can stay directly impacts, and how they can travel and where they can stay directly impacts how they're looking at travel as leisure versus travel as necessity. So here's another example of just these little cottages, and it's probably next to a little gas station there. Always of the utmost importance is that you can have your car right by your room, because all your supplies are around there. You don't want to be shuttling supplies from any kind of a distance. Here's another one that's nicer, and it even has a little carport. And a lot of places also started adding little touches to make them look more homey, so they would appeal to like the middle class traveler. So, you got your little flower bed, and some of them now actually have like indoor running water, things like that. Again, this is jumping around a little bit chronologically, but here's another good example of car culture where they're staying, these little cottages, but their cars are parked right outside. Some of them even explode into something like this. And in this kind of case, you might have that very first house maybe that was the first farmhouse, and you pull up, you register, and maybe one of the kids would jump on the car and show you to where your cabin is. A lot of these smaller places were very DIY culture. Family-owned things that you had the whole family working. The kids are cleaning rooms, dad's doing repairs and building, mom's cooking. So it kept overhead low, which was, of course, during the Depression, an absolute necessity. People are traveling a lot during that time, looking for work, And so not so much, all these times are, everything crisscrosses a lot depending on it, but on what's happening at any given time. In any case, so you can see here built around a gas station, very common to see that. So you start to see this a little bit later as travel becomes thought of as a more leisure thing. There's the smaller buildings, but they're connected by a single roof line. Why? Because you need to protect your car. It's always about the car. The car is driving what the needs are. And here's another one that I really like from Louisiana. Again, all individual cabins. But as time goes on, they start to figure out that building all these separate cabins is not really the most economical way to approach that. This one is of particular interest because this is where the name motel was born. This is the milestone in San Luis Obispo in California. He was looking at, Heinemann was his last name, Arthur Heinemann, was looking at the necessity of travel, particularly in California, and then even more so, traveling from San Diego to Seattle, Highway 101. His idea was to set up a place that was still geared towards motorists, but had a little bit more of a hotel feel, a little more formality to it, had a restaurant. And his idea was to stage it every 200 miles because that was really a day's trip, was 200 miles. And then you got to stop. You got to take a break. That's as far as you're going to go. That's a good 12-hour drive. You're going 40 miles an hour. So on dirty, unpaved roads. So it's going to take you a while to get there. So this is halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. Sets up the milestone. He's wanting to convey that we're friendly to motorists, but we're also a little bit nicer. We're more of a hotel. So it's a hybrid kind of thing. So he wanted to have it say motor hotel on the sign, but there isn't room. So that is where the name motel was born. And this is what it looked like later. The white stucco, red roof was a very popular thing. It's kind of what the Holiday has. I've always wondered if that was inspired by this, the Mission Revival architecture. And so that obviously this is a little bit later, a little bit more filled out. And so you would go and register, and then they would drive you to your room, and then they would go and park your car in a little garage. You had your own garage and everything. So the automobile is front and center for what is why people are choosing to stay where they're staying. And so here we go. This is a little bit later. And this is just a comparison from where it began to where it ended up. It changed. So his plan was to do this every 200 miles, but then the Depression hit, and that just kind of squashed all those plans. And another one never was built. And I don't think he ever had this fully developed to the level of quality that he wanted, though it is known for a couple of key moments, like Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio had lunch there on their honeymoon. And Ronald Reagan did some of his campaign speeches for governor from the milestone. But this was the only one. And right now, I think there's only a couple little pieces of it left standing. It changed hands, and it just never really survived over the years. And the last thing that I read about it, that they found that it was pretty much built out of cardboard, bricks, chicken wire, and stucco. And the article that I read, he said that he was pretty sure that it was the chicken wire that was holding it up still. So very inventive during that time. So, okay. This is where you get into it becoming more economical architecture. It's sharing the same foundation. And now they can just run the plumbing through it. They can run the heating through it. Much cheaper to air condition and cool and all that kind. Not that they all had air conditioning back then, but much more cheaper to run. But you still see that every door you can pull up and you can park your car. It's still extremely important to people that they have their car right outside. At this time, they've gone from we've had this is more getting into the cottage courts. This is more of like a motor inn. This one is interesting because it's called a cottage court, but there's really no separate cottages here. It's more of the inline architecture. Clearly you can see where the lobby is. You pull up and you can register. These, unfortunately, the auto camps and the cottage courts and that kind of thing became popular too, with more criminal element along the way as well, because it is a more anonymous check-in procedure. Yeah. J. Edgar Hoover actually had launched a war on motels at one point, that they were camps of crime, he called them. Here's another example of them being built around gas stations, cafes, that kind of thing. There's a well-known, in particular, restaurant that we still have today that actually was born out of a motel, and that would be from the Sanders Court and Cafe in Corbin, Kentucky, and that is where Kentucky Fried Chicken came from. Little fun fact. So, but they were just recognizing that anytime somebody's needing to stop for the night, they need food, they need fuel, they need sundries, so they fulfilled that need. Here's another one. So now, only after the Milestone Motel do you start to see the word motel used in the description of hotels. It was entered into the dictionary formally in 1950, and more and more places did start to use them, but you still see them referred to as hotel courts and things like that. But it's still the same concept. You can have your car, you can park right outside your door. So Little King's Hotel Court, Highway 66. This one is I love this one because it's a great example that was probably a farmhouse, and then they just probably kept building onto this in either direction. Oh. And again, just adding these little touches over time, little awnings over the door, just to give people a more homey feel when they're staying away from home. It's just a straight inline architecture. This one here is special to me because this is on Highway 145 in Milwaukee, and this is also the site of where the Midway Motor Lodge was. Does anybody remember that in Milwaukee, or remember Midway Motor Lodges in general? I mean, that they were born of a motel, but they developed over time to become a destination. They had indoor swimming pools for all year round, and they had a hotel and a bar. And anyway, my mother worked at the Hoffman House at the Midway Motor Lodge my entire growing up, so I just remember her putting her uniform on and heading into work. So this is that site on Highway 100 and Highway 45. And Porter's Court here, now Holiday Motel. A lot of these postcards I'm showing are Holiday Motels. It was not an exclusive name. And they were around before the Holiday Inn franchise started as well. And this was Pat over at the motel went on a buying spree of Holiday Motel postcards one time. So that's where a lot of these come from. But here's that U-shape architecture. It's another one. Just a quick go through. And this is what I'm talking. At one point, they instead of them just being a stopping point, they become more of a destination. Kids are more important to entertain, so swimming pools start to appear, and they're often in the very public setting, seen from the highway, so that they want to get people off the road and into their driveway. As they're evolving as well, you start to see them building upwards instead of outwards. A lot of people found that running a motel was not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And there were actual support organizations for them, because a lot of people thought, oh, this will be a great retirement thing to do, or this is going to be easy. But then they found themselves, especially as the market became more saturated and they're competing for more business, they're finding themselves feeling very, very isolated. Things are so different now with cell phones and computers, but back then you had to be there all the time at the front desk or, a doorbell away. And some of these places are very spread out from the next place or the next town. They're along a highway. So this one. So motel operators will admit that the motel business is confining. Some become so frustrated that their attitudes with their clientele are strained. Others adjust to the situation in various ways in order to remain relaxed and happy as motel managers. And this guy's just basically talking about how he would interview people to see if they're really a fit. Are you sure you want to do this? Johnson says he was quite blunt when he's interviewing these potential motel owners, and he asked them 3 specific questions. Do you really like people? That's number 1. If the answer is yes, his next question is even more blunt. Are you willing to work harder than you ever have worked before? And finally, will you mind being confined day after day after day? So not really a selling point, but if they answered yes to all 3 of those, then he's like, great, you're perfect, buy a motel. So some of these things are still true. It is a business that running a motel is a way of life. I mean, you are on call 24/7. You have to be there a lot. Even when you have the best staff in the world, it's still, it's very hard to get away. So this is a treat for me to be on the west side. This is super fun. Okay, just a quick review. We've gone from the basic tour homes to auto camps, cabin camps, moving into cottage courts, motor courts. Okay, there we go. And then just a quick review of the configurations of them. One that we haven't seen yet though, is the crescent style. And this is not only the configuration, but the unique appeal of it. Because of course, more people are building motels. How do they get people in there? They need some kind of shtick. They need some kind of angle, something that's going to catch their eye and get them to get off the highway and come stay with them. And places like this also were doing this so that they would become more of a destination. These wigwam motels, this was actually begun in 1933. They really, several were built more in the Southwest. I think there's only one in existence still today. But other things that they tried out, old train cars, an old airplane, the Space Shuttle Inn. This is an early one. These were made out of redwood trees that they just hollowed out. And this is a really early one, the Zeppelin Tourist Camp. As people are going down the highway, they're also trying to find other ways to get their attention and get them off the road. So you'd see funny billboards along the way. George Washington never slept here, but Rita Hayworth did. Southern style sleeping, lazy man, lazy. And honeymoon suites, air, H-E-I-R, conditioned. Wah, wah. Okay. Consistency and quality is a really big problem with a lot of these places because they're built so cheaply. And the average traveler is becoming increasingly frustrated that they're finding themselves subjected to some really unappealing situations. Certain entities stepped up to form kind of like little advertising clubs, if you will, to try to put their stamp of approval on things, try to get greater consistency of quality, a consistency of amenities and that kind of thing. So you see these kinds of things popping up that, like the Rainbow Cottage camps. If you had that and the people knew, you would have certain amenities available. The OK Modern Courts, Deluxe Motor Courts, the United Motor Courts. And here's another one, the Quality Courts United. Some of these actually turned into hotels, the Albert Pick Motels. And you see the AAA logo down at the bottom there. AAA actually started in 1903, mainly first printing maps to tell people where the best roads were, because the 93% even of the highways in quotes in America, even in the 20s, were unpaved. So they were trying to let people know this is an easier path to take. But anyway, so you could look at this and know that in these cities, these hotels are probably okay. The only issue with that there was nobody to really go around and monitor anything. There's nobody really checking on it. So it was still hit or miss. Traveling salesman, who's spending a lot of time on the road, starts keeping a journal of the best restaurants that he stayed in, and he gave it to his friends as a Christmas present. And in the next year, he published one for the hotels that he stayed in, lodging for a night, and his name is Duncan Hines. So that becomes a very, very, the stamp of approval. And with the Duncan Hines approved places, you know that he actually stayed there. It wasn't, oh, they said that they're going to uphold this quality. He actually stayed there. Another book that was necessary during that time was the Green Book for the African American population by Victor Green. And, you know, here you can see he's listing hotels, travelers, garages, restaurants, on and on and on, so that people would know where they could pull off the road to get services and actually be welcome. Not a proud moment in our history for that to be necessary. But okay, so moving on. So this is the Holiday Motel Hotel card, and you can see we are both AAA and Duncan Hines approved. So. That's like the earliest ways of trying to put a stamp of quality on things. Even so, we have another very important traveling salesman come along. He starts out selling Ladies' Home Journal. He got 1 cent out of 3 cents for every sale, took that money, bought a popcorn machine, and started selling popcorn to moviegoers until the movie theater figured out he was making more money than they were. And they took got the popcorn machine from them. So then he invested that money in jukeboxes and he started hawking those. And then he went into, belonged to a developers organization in Memphis. And he wanted to take his family, his 5 kids and his wife, on a trip from Memphis to Washington, D.C., and they were absolutely miserable. The hotel rooms were small. They offered few amenities. They were dirty. They charged extra for kids. So a $6 room was $16 before all was said and done. So he vowed that he was going to create a franchise of motels, which is what they tried to do with the Milestone, and didn't quite pan out because of the Depression and all that. But so he vows that he's going to do this, and he's going to take over the world, and that's where we get the Holiday Inn hotel courts. So he's not, some of them you actually see motel court listed, but this first sign here, hotel courts. So this is the World War II post-consumer culture. People have money, people are moving, people are wanting to explore. So now he is really trying to make his mark on the put his mark on the map here for creating something that is desperately needed for the average traveler. Gone are the days of exploration and surprise. People want more consistency, and one of his mottos was, "The best surprise is no surprise." And so he built the first one in 1952, same year as the Holiday, opened up in August of 1952. Our Holiday opened up in May of 1952. And his mom was instrumental in picking up the bright colors, the green and the yellow. And it got its name from the architect that he was working with was watching a Bing Crosby movie, Holiday Inn, and he jokingly just wrote it on the sketch. And when Kemmons Wilson saw that, he was like, "That's perfect. I love the sketch. I love the name, thus Holiday Inn." One of the things at that time that was extremely important was signage. Get those people off the highway and into your parking lot. So you see with all the early Holiday Inns, they have these 50-foot tall signs, 1,500 feet of neon tubing, 500 light bulbs, and of course, everybody knows the big star on top. That's a lot of maintenance. We have one little neon sign, and I can't imagine to deal with that. So here's like a first postcard of that. And they're called a court because, of course, you're not just pulling up to this building here. This one is a little bit harder to see, but here's more of a better map. So you pull in, you register, and then you drive your car around to your room. So it's an auto court, a motor hotel. It's a motel, really, in every sense of the word. It's just that they're offering more amenities like restaurants. Kids sleep free. They had kennels for dogs. They had garage parking for automobiles if you didn't want to park right in front of your room, that kind of thing. Here's another quick layout of it. One thing that I love is this first postcard. They have kind of three other, focusing in on three different aspects of the hotel. But if you zoom in on this one, the furniture that you see in this picture here is the same stuff that we have at the Holiday in every single room. It was a line of furniture that was made by Simmons, and it was advertised as chip-proof and fireproof, which the Holiday was tested in 2007 when they had a fire. So it's really a wonderful thing to know that we still have 18 rooms full of this perfect vintage furniture. Every other Holiday Inn, every other hotel that had this, I'm sure has gotten rid of it over the years and updated. I have looked for pieces online, like on eBay and stuff like that. They look awful, and the cheapest thing I ever found was about $600. So we're really proud that we still have that piece of history with us. So just a quick flashback to the sign. So here's their 50, oh yeah, it was like 10,000 pounds of steel too. So eventually they gave way to a sign like this, very boring. You see a lot of, restaurants, the Howard Johnson restaurants then decide also that they're going to start to open up hotels. People are eating, people need to sleep. The Travelodge is an interesting one. They opened up in the 30s, and instead of being on the outskirts of town, where you would typically find a motel, they decided to start building their motels more downtown, but to keep them very affordable. A lot of these funny logos. This is Sleepy Bear, by the way, in case you didn't know. And the kid that got to sleep in the Bear Cove, one of the rooms had a Bear Cove in it, in the room, and the kid would get a free teddy bear. So kind of anything to get people in their rooms. I forgot one interesting thing about Kemmons Wilson and the Holiday Inn franchise. He also revolutionized. I want to back up for a second because it's really what he did was so fascinating. So the first few years he was barely able to make payroll, but then he tried to get other people, home builders associations involved and get financing from them, but not really going very well. So they ended up reaching out to people that had expendable income, doctors, lawyers, that kind of thing. And that supported them for a while until they could finally start selling shares. And where is my notes on that? How many that he built? Okay, so in 57, he's still struggling. But from 1952 to 1960, there were 100 in operation. By 1962, the 400th Holiday was built. So he was not only building in the United States, he started expanding internationally. And eventually he's first known as the nation's innkeeper, and then he becomes known as the world's innkeeper. They're all very successful, except for he tried to do the downtown Holiday Inns and the small towns, trying to put them in the small towns. They just didn't succeed in the small towns, but the international ones and the downtown ones were of great success. Okay, so trying to get people in their rooms, need to what are you going to do to get their attention? There's no secret that some of these still roadside motels that are still in existence, Kemmons Wilson and his idea of franchise is really a turning point for the mom pop motels, as is the interstate highway system. Because now you got all those people bypassing the towns. They're over here. They're not on the 2-lane highways anymore. So it's a lot of battle getting uphill. It's a lot of going uphill trying to get your business back. Sometimes people went directly at the reputation of motels, maybe being a little seedy. Make love, not war. Do it at our hotel, at our motel. Another common thing was the neon craze. Neon had been around since the 20s, been used for a long time, but not on the scale that we were seeing, where they're learning different colors and bending tubes and that kind of thing. So here we go, some fun examples of that. Of course, you got to have the Bates Motel in there. Here's one. The Austin Motel is still in operation, as is the Blue Swallow Motel. I can attest that they're a lot of work, and I can't think of a single year. I've been running the motel, it'll be 13 years this August. I can't remember a single year where we haven't needed some kind of repair, and it's not like there's a neon repair guy right down the street. They're coming up from Green Bay or De Pere, and it's quite expensive. And over the years, people have tried to convince us to replace it with LED tubing, and we're like, we just can't. I know that it's more energy efficient and all that, but we just can't. We just want to keep our original neon sign. Years ago, the Blue Swallow Motel had gotten hit by a hailstorm and completely wiped out their neon, and they got it all back up and running. So it's just kind of a quick development of the rise and fall of motels, that they're just building to try to meet the need of the travelers, but then there's an oversaturation. Interstate highways really get developed, and Kemmons Wilson really puts on the map the franchise idea of whenever you go to a Holiday, you know what you're getting. Plus, he worked closely with IBM and developed, it was called the Holodeck system, that you could book any room anywhere in the world. You could go into a Holiday and plan your whole vacation and know exactly where you were staying, book your room. They tracked inventory, the whole thing, and eventually that hooked in with travel agencies and airlines and things like that. So his innovations to the tourism industry impact us all today. Just a quick little tour of the history of the Holiday. So this is the corner of where the Holiday is now. I'm not sure about this. One of you in the room probably knows this. Was Main Street actually 2nd Avenue? Do we know? No. Cedar Street was 3rd. Second was Main. That's looking at this is kind of what I thought. So they must have put in 1st Avenue later.
Yes.
So we are.
2nd Avenue was waterfront.
1st Avenue.
Originally.
Oh.
2nd Avenue originally.
Really? Okay. 2nd Avenue was waterfront. Okay. So this is all filled in? Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. So the Holiday building itself is on the corner of Main and Spruce. Then that's correct, right? Okay. So you're not even seeing where 1st Avenue is. So this is a sketch idea of what the Holiday would become. This is the architect that ended up developing the Holiday. Clearly, this is not that corner. And it does show a couple of differences, and I read that in their plans as well, that the original plan was to have the entrance on what is now 2nd Avenue Street. How long have I been here? And to have some parking down off of 1st. And they would have the lobby up there, and then the lobby up there and the boiler room down below. The current incarnation is completely flip-flop. The lobby is on the farther to the north, and the boiler room is all down there. So, but before they even built, we have this announcement from 1951 that this landmark, built in 1856, is going to be torn down to make way for the Holiday Motel.
And what year was that?
This newspaper article, I believe, is from 1951. Yeah.
When was this?
This was a newspaper article from 51 announcing the intentions to tear down this old hotel. As soon as the 4 current occupants vacate, something like that. It was built by Peterson Shipbuilders, if I'm not mistaken. If anybody here knows better, you correct me. And it was mainly to house the workers, the lumber, shingles, boat workers. So it's going to replace the old landmark. And the people behind this project are the same people that at that time owned the Nautical Inn, Paul's Nautical Inn. Now, before they were the restaurant, it was years before that, it was actually a hotel itself. So William Paul develops the plans to open the Holiday Motel, but the original sketches actually listed it as the Paul Motel. I don't know at what point they decided to change it to the Holiday, but there we go. Here we are. One thing that is somewhat unique about the Holiday is that the traditional motels in the traditional sense are found on the outskirts of town along highways. But here we have one that's actually downtown, but it's along a highway. So because for about 50 years, that was your only way across from one side to the other. So everybody coming across that bridge since 1929 until 1978, when the bypass was built, the first thing they're seeing is that corner. So starting in 52, the first thing they see is the Holiday. Features of the hotel motel are incorporated into the building. It was considered ultra-modern at the time. And I had this question before it even started, well, what makes it a motel? The distinctive characteristics of a hotel versus a motel. The car is everything. Where are you parking your car? Are you able to access your room from the same level as your car? We're built into a hill, so you can park up on 2nd Avenue and access your room, or you can park in the parking lot and access your room that way. The original plans did have doors that were going to open up into the parking lot. Thank God they did not do that. Would hate to be pushing a maid's cart around in the snow and rain and all kinds of fun. But the part that also makes it a hotel is that it's opening into a hallway, and it has a common area, a lobby, where people, and there's a small little diner in there as well that was added in 1953, though that was always part of the original plan. So I believe this is the very first of the Holiday. So some beautiful cars in the parking lot. And noticing over time how things have changed. These are fabric awnings on there. There is no carport in this view of the Holiday. And we see later on here a little bit different. In Northeast Wisconsin, famous air-conditioned Door County Peninsula. Holiday fun year-round, easy to reach, hard to leave. Yeah, so it's great fun looking at through all of these old brochures. One thing that we desperately really could use, again, would be a ski hill in Potawatomi Park to have more winter sports, more family-friendly winter sports to attract people to the community. So maybe that'll come back someday. So here we go. All right, and this is a little bit later. So you see that the bushes and stuff in the front have really grown up. Trees are starting to take over, and there's a really long, dark carport in the front now that wasn't there before. 18 modern use, all rooms with double beds. Would that be a selling point for anybody? I mean, these days people call up, our king rooms are the first to go. They want king beds. The queens are like, okay, you know. But yeah, for just all double beds, okay. Central heating system, carpeted throughout. So every room features completely tiled tub and shower, television sets, luxurious wall-to-wall carpeting, air conditioning, and hallways for guest comfort. Yeah, okay. So here's just moving on a little bit. And in looking at the history, it seems like when it first started out, it was owned for about a decade each. But then when you get into the 80s, it shorter spans of ownership. This is, I'm not exactly even sure when these pictures were taken. I'm guessing maybe 80s or so. I'm not really sure. But it's just fun to look at the rooms and see how they've changed over time. Televisions were huge. Here, that's pretty 80s van, right? A long carport still exists, but now it's a dark one. You can see that it extends out there. Our kitty corner from us, that hasn't changed. That view looks pretty much identical now. Here's the next incarnation of the promotional brochure. And the sign is painted black. So at some point, somebody decided to paint the sign black for some reason. This is kind of a fun view of the motel where it shows you used to be able to park right on the road. Can't do that. When I first came here in 2007, I remember I was parking on Michigan Street. But then when they closed it down to repair the bridge, then that changed. And here you can see the sign is painted black, and it has an arrow pointing down to it. Not sure whatever happened to that arrow. At some point, the neon did come down. Pete and Marilyn Devaney got it in 1992, and they had found the neon in storage, and they had the sign rehabbed and replaced. I kind of was hoping that they might be here today. They have so many fun stories about it. Pete and Marilyn were living in Minneapolis, if I remember correctly. His boss was from Sturgeon Bay, and he had come here to go salmon fishing. And Pete saw the Holiday on a fun map from Sister Bay Fall Fest and decided to stay in room 236, we figured out. He approached Glenn Visti, who was the owner at that time, to buy it. At that time, Glenn and Tina Visti only had it for a couple of years, and they closed on it that April. But Pete and Marilyn, neither one of them had any experience in hospitality, and their very first customer was a truck driver that showed Pete how to check somebody in. So yeah, they restored the neon, thank goodness. And then 1998, they hear about this plan to build across the street from them. Now this is the view. I was hoping to get, I neglected to get at what the view looks like now, but this is from our balcony looking out at the Steel Bridge. And what do we have there now? We have Stone Harbor Resort. The original plan for Stone Harbor, from what I remember, was to have the swimming pool at this end so that their view would be unobstructed. But at some point, the plans changed, and here we are. So just to walk you through a couple more fun images from, yeah. So the one on the left is the early shot of the lobby with a fish tank. Thank God we don't still have that, but a completely configuration with a table right under the window there. And this was during when Pete and Marilyn owned it. And I believe it was a big windstorm that knocked it down. And yeah, Pete told a funny story about having to call the guy to tell him what happened to his car. And now they put it right back up. They did think about moving the sign, but then after learning about the local ordinances, they realized that they would have to move it like 20 feet into the parking lot and wouldn't be able to have the neon anymore. So as soon as we mess with it, we're not going to be grandfathered in anymore. So our sign is precious to us. And outside of the occasional hail that damages a tube or a mischievous kid throwing his shoe at it and breaking the neon, we've had pretty good luck with it. But there's a lot of maintenance, and transformers go, it needs to be repainted, any number of things. So back in the day, they used to actually serve, eggs and bacon and that kind of thing. And these are a couple of ladies that used to work there. And you can see in the background there is a different mural than we have today. And I included this other photograph because it was a very, very rare instance where Pat was up, probably still up. And he was serving these ladies coffee probably at 7:30 in the morning, and they were just tickled. So it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We've never seen it since. So, yeah, Pete and Marilyn ran the motel for about 15 years, if I have that right. And now to kind of crisscross with a little bit of the history of Steel Bridge Songfest and where that came from, because it's integral to the current existence of the holiday. There, as many of you know, there was an attempt to have the bridge taken down and another bridge put up in its place. A group of local citizens, really spearheaded by Christy Weber, really rallied a lot of people. I mean, she did a ton of work to make sure that didn't happen. And in the midst of all of this, as it's being threatened to be torn down, she talks to her brother Pat, a very well-known, Pat McDonald, very well-known musician, and says, you know, hey, do you think we can get some of your friends together and let's raise awareness about what's going on with the bridge? So 2005, that's exactly what happens. Jackson Browne is one of the people that lends his name to the concert. And it was a huge success, and the community very, very inspired. The next year, they decided to do the same thing, but to add a songwriting element, collaborative songwriting element. So they need a place to house all these musicians. So they approach Pete and Marilyn Devaney and work out a deal to rent the Holiday to be what they would call the construction zone, which was the collaborative songwriting portion of the event. And so this is the construction zone from 2007, the third steel bridge. This is literally weeks after maybe even only a couple weeks after they closed on it, because I believe they closed on it at the end of May in 2007, and this is June of 2007. I love this picture. It's got a lot of the original people in it. Bruce Reeves is on the end in the turquoise shirt. Next to him is Chris Aaron. Steve Hamilton is a big participant of all to this day. Unfortunately, we lost Chris years ago. Pat is, well, you can see Pat. And just behind him, peeking over his right shoulder, is Anna Sachs, and she was really instrumental in inspiring the idea to even buy the motel. She was a songwriter at the second event, and she was so excited about what happened. And she's like, Pat, we've got to let's get our own hotel so we can do this all year. All year. And Christy's not featured in this. I believe this is just the songwriters, but that was really kind of the primary group that went around and recruited investors, to invest in this project. Jackson Browne is photoshopped in on the far right there. He was there, but just not in the picture. But he once he bought into this idea, it was, I think, a little bit easier to get other people on board with it. And it also came from a conversation that Pat and Jackson had years ago about, having a trailer park for where musicians could just come and focus and work and collaborate. And Pat's like, well, it's not a trailer park, but what do you think? And so he became involved as well. I am in that picture on the other, behind Pat's other corner, the one holding the guitar. That was my first event. So I always like to make sure that it's clear, because some of the articles out there are wrong. I was not part of the early idea for Steel Bridge. I was not part of the purchasing. I came here as a result of the work that they were doing, and I was so inspired that by the next year I moved here, and I've never left. So, so at that time, though, we have some different views of the motel. This is what the front office lobby, the sliding glass window, kind of a classic feature for motels. This is the lobby as well. It's more closed off. One of the previous owners had put up a door there because they had little kids and didn't want to disturb the whole building. Just some fun features like the little fake plants under the mirror, You just don't see that anymore. So it's June of 2007. And then, dun, 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 August of 2007. They've only had the motel for a couple of months, and there's a fire. Turns out to be a recessed lighting fixture on the second floor. It arced and ignited the old insulation, which was apparently not very fireproof. So the main damage was smoke and water damage. You can see on the lower right-hand corner there, the eaves that made out of redwood, so a nice hot fire. And the fire department it took a while to even get through the roof to be able to put the fire out. So unfortunately, this keeps the motel closed for 22 months. So you have this group of people so excited, we're going to do this amazing thing, we're going to buy this hotel, we're going to do this, and then the fire. So after 22 months of working to get it back up and open again, and people that invested in weren't really investing in a fixer-upper, if you will. And insurance doesn't cover all of this. So we did have a couple of angels that came to our rescue. One angel in particular that came to the rescue to make sure that we got those doors open again. And I keep saying we, but again, I wasn't a part of this. I was still just on the outside, just by then, I wasn't even playing with Pat at that time. That was early August, but I was there the day of the fire for a different event. And we ended up actually having to stay in rooms above the nautical. That was an adventure. In any case, so Christy, Anna, Pat, Steve Hamilton, Bruce Reeves, Chris Aaron, I'm certainly leaving people out that should be mentioned, but they worked so hard to get everything up and running again. And, at that time, people are also dreaming about what could the holiday be. And I'm not even sure who came up with this, but it's kind of interesting to note that the original plans never had anything to do with buying the old Portside building next to us. But in 2014, it became a reality. It started off as one of our investors purchasing it, thinking that he could do something else with it. And then when that was apparent that wasn't going to happen, then we're like, whoa, well, how about us? So we ended up working out a really good deal with him and getting it. So here is the first, this is when they first opened. So in the diner there, you have the first managers of the motel. There's Anna, Marissa, who was only there for a short while, and of course, Christy Weber there. And what's that? Oh, nothing. Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, many, many kudos to them for getting through that fire and getting it open up again, and also making it look so beautiful. So, they changed the decor a bit. It became more clean and more streamlined. The only major thing that was changed inside the motel is that wall where the sliding glass doors, that was knocked out, so that the lobby became more open. So that upper right-hand image shows you the lobby there. And immediately, so yeah, I was helping out with the events at that time. And it's June, and songwriters are already arriving, and they're still trying to get approval from the city to open their doors. And it was just chaos. So anyway, we ended up sneaking a bunch of people into the first floor rooms and if we say the word, run. We got approval for the second floor, thank God. So immediately, and there's Steve Hamilton. The rooms would get converted into recording studios. Steve Hamilton was our main engineer and our only engineer for a while. But then later on, people started bringing their own recording gear. Things just became more compact, easier to record. So multiple studios started popping up. And then 2014, when we got the tambourine, then we had more studios. It's just has grown in directions that we never saw coming. But here's kind of, if you want to peek inside during a songwriting event, this is what it looks like. And I think a lot of people in the community may have gotten the wrong idea that it was just some big party. And sure, there was some kind of, fun happening at any given time, but it really is amazing how much work was being done. The people were up all night writing. And, this whole party kind of idea about musicians and songwriters, by the time we did our last event in February of 2020, out of 30 people, I think 24 of them didn't even drink. It really wasn't that. And there was so much trepidation over, these musicians are coming into Sturgeon Bay, they're going to bring drugs and crime and whatever. And it just hasn't never been that way. This was really a project from the very beginning, all about the heart of it, all about actually creating beautiful, collaborative music that would never get created otherwise. And a lot of it has to do with the community. And I'm remiss to not mention that it had everything to do with the Steel Bridge. So, And the event and all the people that have worked on it, I think everyone and all the volunteers that have helped over time, when you look at that bridge, there's a whole community of people that rallied behind that bridge. And Steel Bridge was no small part of that in raising awareness. So yeah, here we are at the Holiday, writing songs in rooms, and they're everywhere, in the lobby, in the diner, sitting in hallways. This one I always get a kick out of because my office finally moved inside. I mean, I literally went from doing it from my apartment. I used to live down on 3rd and Pennsylvania. And then I got a table outside, and I was helping to organize all of the bands and the construction zone musicians coming in. So it's a lot, but, spreadsheets are my friend. And anyway, so here's a few shots of some of the events. This one, the upper left, that was 2008 when the motel was still closed, and big thanks to Beach Harbor for hosting us that year. Because once this thing got started, you were not keeping the musicians away. They're coming. They are coming. And they hosted us, but we still had the concert down here. And that was where is it Center Point Yachts now? Yeah. Where that big blue building is, that used to be all open and a big stage would get set up. And it was the most perfect backdrop for Steel Bridge Songfest. But, over the years, we've just had to adapt to whatever we have. So once that was built and then the Steel Bridge was getting repaired, we put a stage in front of the bridge. The road was closed anyway. And that was great fun as well. And then over time, we ended up not asking for any street closures, and we put the concert in our parking lot. So we had one stage down by the sign, and the other sign was up on the balcony, and we would just ping pong all day long, back and forth. The smaller acts would be up on the balcony, like you can see those beautiful ladies in their lovely dresses there. And then bounce down to the stage, the big stage by the sign. We don't like the word main stage. And Jackson was kind enough to come and do a concert for us one of the years there. He's done several. In any case, you can see people looking up in the parking lot would just be packed with people. It was just to stand up there and look at all the people that came. It's just really heartwarming. But outside of the festivals, we did other things like lawn concerts. Literally set up a PA on the lawn and have people play all different kinds. And we had this a cappella group that did Viking songs one time. They were just wonderful. And then house concerts in our apartment. There's a 2-bedroom apartment, manager's living quarters on the 2nd floor. And I'm featuring Jackson again here, I guess. But he came and did 2 house concerts. It was supposed to just be one, but then there was a major snowstorm. And he is just such a beautiful spirit, and he didn't want anybody risking life and limb to get there. And so he said, if you can't make it, don't worry. I will come back next year and do another one for you. And he did. We've had the great honor of being featured on things like the 30-minute music hour. So there's Pat and I up there as Purgatory Hill. Paul Seabar down there. That was great fun to have and they set up the control room in one of the rooms and just be a part of that kind of production. As I said, we purchased the building next door to us, the old Portside building, in 2014, and that is now where we have the Tambourine Lounge, and that's where we do weekly writers' night, which is original music. We're all about original music. It's not about cover music. It's an open mic that's hosted by Pat every Thursday from 7 to 9, or whenever he feels like stopping. And we also do house concerts in there, any variety of things. And in fact, Pat has a house concert in there tonight, though I think it's sold out. There's a couple of you that are going to that, I think. I'm looking around the room. Okay. We've also had some other great honors being featured with Travel Retro, with some of the highest revered motels still existing in this country. We were featured in USA Today as one of the top 20 motels in the United States. We were featured again in there. I forget what the distinction was. On Milwaukee.com is, of course, giving us some props as well. Chicago Sun-Times wrote quite an extensive article about us, though they had a lot of things wrong in there, giving me way too much credit for things that I didn't have anything to do with. But anyway, it was still nice to be featured in the Chicago Sun-Times. The headline is Door County's Coolest Motel. So I agree. We were on Around the Corner with John McGivern, And he'll actually be coming back sometime in the near future this year, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. And then 2014, I had the great honor to be part of a show on the Travel Channel, and I got to travel around for 10 days with the Travel Channel crew and be part of this show that was called Hotel Showdown. We are very interconnected with the Steelbridge Creative Foundation, previously known as Citizens for Our Bridge. Once it really moved out of saving the bridge and celebrating the bridge, we decided that we should expand our vision a bit to be more inclusive of all of the arts down in our district, which has eventually led to 2nd Avenue being declared the Steelbridge Creative District. And we're extremely proud about that one. Pam Seiler at the Visitor Center had a lot to do with getting that up and running. And so that's the Pelka Trenchard Glass, Margaret Lockwood Gallery, the Holiday, and the Tambourine Collaboratory, which houses not just the Tambourine Lounge, but also a lot of artist studios and a couple of recording studios. It's not a building that we purchased with the intent to make a bunch of money off of it. It's something that we got to enable and support the arts community. So we offer very affordable workspaces for visual artists and musicians in there. And the whole point of it is just to get people in close proximity to one another so that great things can happen. And great things are happening. And we also, after all these years, we have over 1,500 songs written and recorded in the Holiday. And so we had to create our own radio station, which is known as Steelbridge Radio. And you can download that on your phone and listen to it anywhere in the world, which is great fun. Again, a lot of those songs are about the Steelbridge, about Door County. So please tune in at some point. So just a quick wrap up. I know that's a whole lot of information right after lunch, but just want to give you a glimpse of some befores and afters. So then and now, if you will. So this then and now, and this one, the old postcard, and I did a mock-up of the now in the same kind of style, my attempt at it anyway. The lobby, then and now. And that's Teresa Young standing on the stairs. I don't know how happy she was that Pat made her do that, but we're so happy that she did. Teresa was with us for over 10 years. She's from Sturgeon Bay. She was really my right-hand man for a long, long time. And we miss her, but she is flying all over the country with American Airlines now. So very proud of Teresa. She's wonderful. All right. The lobby, then and now. Couple of changes, and every now and then we find something that we're like, oh my God, that's that table. So there's the first diner, and then our diner now, that floor is probably, it's the very first sheet linoleum that was made in the late 60s, so a lot of people had it. So often I've been so close to replacing it, but people come in and they go, oh, that was in my mom's house. That was in, it's got holes in it, and but people still tell me how much they love it. So I guess we're keeping it. The mural obviously has changed. That's probably more 70s. The lighting fixtures in the motel were done by Papelka Trenchard Glass. So, we've, over the years, I have really tried to take out all the lamps that are not vintage and replace them with really groovy vintage lamps and ice buckets and old radios and just all those little touches that make it a little bit more authentic and more special. But these are the original desks from the day they opened. New mattresses, of course. People always ask me that. I say it's original furniture, and they're like, you changed the beds, right? So, but the effort really was to keep it looking as close to the original as possible. I mean, if these were in black and white, how much would you really know? This next one I really had to show you because you can't get it out of black and white. So lots of beautiful colors. The tiles are just amazing. And just at the end, here's some detailed shots of things, the old Kleenex boxes, some of the artwork, the old radios. I didn't pick out these phones, but that was a great move on their part after the fire to pick out these. They look like rotary phones, but they're still push button. People love them, love them. And this one, the tile with the ship in it, that's the only room that has that. I love that. So, in any case, thank you so much for having me. And if there's anything else you want to know, you can always go here to our website, holidaymusicmotel.com. There's a ton of pictures. There's also a lot about our history there. It's all beautifully laid out, so it's easy to follow instead of a rambling person up here. Anyway, thank you for having me.